understanding yourself really well, your strength, your capabilities, the resources that you really hold, your interest, and the knowledge of the industry that you hold, in order to identify a particular segment or a problem that you want to solve for. And then you go about from there to looking at your competitors and identifying gaps, reading in between the lines, and then building a product.
People are doing things right now that we can capitalize on, and the whole journey with design sprint is that opportunity framing, then converting those opportunities into solutions like concepts that actually gives answers to the four risks that Janki talked about. People who might potentially be your lead users, people who might adapt to your solutions early on, and these people are of course conjugating on different places on the internet.
Your most important thing to do would be saying no to a lot of things. And when you say no to a lot of things, that's when you really move.
Yeah, you focus
That's-
on the thing that matters
Exactly.
the most. Hey guys, welcome back to the BNB podcast. This is episode number 7. Welcome Neil, Janki. It is really nice to have you back after the distribution episode that we actually messed up with, but of course, here we are. We never stop doing this shit though. So yes, welcome back to everyone who's listening, watching to this. It's been an amazing ride so far, and today we are going to talk about everything that we have talked about so far. So the episode is about everything we have talked so far, and this is actually with regards to the mini series that we have in mind, and we want to spin up playlists of this. So we talked about research. We followed up with how do you take the research and build something. Once you've built something, how do you go out and distribute it, so that how do I get myself noticed and how do I get my stuff out there. And after distribution, today we are sitting together again to wrap ourselves around the whole concept of research, build, and distribution, and also try to summarize it for people if they don't want to look at us talking at length about research, which is 500 hours, then build, which is 600 hours, and distribution, which is 700 hours. So this is possibly 500 hours again. But yeah, so welcome back, guys, and I hope you have fun watching this, listening to this.
Hello guys, I'm back and thank you for having me back. In the last episode you boycotted me, but thanks for doing that too. I'm Janki and I work as a research analyst for product and businesses right now. I have extensive experience of 4 years in the corporate, being a business developer, senior design manager, and currently working as an independent researcher, helping people identify opportunities and formulate those opportunities into real product and businesses. Thank you for having me.
So yeah, I'm Harshal. I am a designer, not completely there, but yeah, I'm a designer. And what I do is I simplify idea validation for people with ideas. That's it. That's everything I do. And I'm really fascinated about design sprints. I geek about them. And if you find me online, I'd be rather commenting on this folks post or might be talking design sprints. Yeah, so that's me.
Hey guys, my name is Neil Patel and I'm the founder of Sync Signature. Recently, I just completed video editing as well, so you may call me a video editor as well now. But yeah, I'm just building a startup right now, which is a SaaS platform for email signatures. And we do this podcast every week where we talk about digital businesses and running a digital business, starting a digital business, all of that. And yeah, I mean that's about me.
So in today's episode, we are, as Harshal rightly mentioned, that we're going to summarize the past 3 episodes of the mini series of Research, Build, and Distribute. So just to summarize the first episode of this mini series, which was research, where me and Neil extensively shared our approaches towards research, me being as a researcher and Neil as a founder of how did we go about doing research, a step-by-step guide to that. So research is an ongoing activity. It's not a one-time stop. And it's a continuous discovery process for anyone who is wanting to build a digital business. And why do we do research is basically anyone who's wanting to do research or is into the activity of research is wanting to de-risk and validate certain hypotheses around the business they want to create, which is value risk, usability risk, feasibility risk, and viability risk. So those are the four major risks that anyone should de-risk before starting out anything and investing the time and resources and efforts into building something. And we also shared two approaches towards that. Someone who is first one, which was someone who is into the industry for a very long time and who knows the industry really well, who understands the competitors and who understands the customers and the user base also. So as Neil shared, of having an approach inside out, understanding yourself really well, your strength, your capabilities, the resources that you really hold, your interest, and the knowledge of the industry that you hold, in order to identify a particular segment or a problem that you want to solve for. And then you go about from there to looking at your competitors and identifying gaps, reading in between the lines, and then building a product. Second way and second approach to that to research is moving outside in. So someone who is just starting out to build a business, who's a first time founder or just as a researcher or a product owner, for example, you go about conducting secondary research starting from your desk and looking out for validation if there is a market, if there are users, and if there are players, big or small. So that provides you a first indication about if the market is safe enough for you to operate in. And from there, you go around looking for customer or user validation. So what exactly are you going to target in that particular segment? Talking to your users with prototypes or landing pages. So more on that later on. But basically, that's what you do. You start your research at desk, you validate the market, you validate your user base, and then you create a hypothesis to de-risk the four risk. And that's when you plug into what we shared was a design sprint. So those were the two approaches that we really looked deeper into. So if you're wanting to learn more about what research was, when do you conduct research, what do you do when, and what kind of approach is really relevant for you in your stage, I think you should just go back to the episode, which will link of the episode down in the description. So check that episode out to learn more about in detail. And now over to you, Harshil, of how do we take this entire research that we conducted in the first phase, and how do you use that research in both the different approaches, and what do you do next?
Thank you, Janki. That was really well summarized. And just to add to it, like this is where design sprints come into play. Of course, there are two scenarios. One where you are in a uncontested or not so saturated market space and you don't know much about the space. So what you do is that you'll have to take the outside in approach. So you'll have to learn from the market, and of course everything that Janki said from research standpoint, that stands true. And this is where design sprints come into place. Of course, it's where design sprint starts, or at least what's necessary from a research standpoint that gets plugged into the design sprint is that for the complete awareness of everyone who's going to participate in the sprint, what we try to make sure every time we have facilitated a sprint is that we have, from a research standpoint, we try to make sure that everyone understands the industry. So there's a high level overview or a snapshot of the industry. We look at the technology trends that are shaping the industry. So where is technology going, and what is the digitalization aspect of that industry? What is the narrative from a technology standpoint? We look at what are the existing solutions. So if since we're talking unsaturated space, of course there might not exist a lot of solutions. So we have to look at how people are doing, how are people currently solving their problems. So we need to have that understanding before we go into the sprint, so that if there are existing solutions, well and good. If not, we have to look at what is currently, like, how are people getting the stuff done as of right now. And then most importantly is that, are there any opportunities, are there any gaps in the current solutions, in the way people are doing things right now, that we can capitalize on. And the whole journey with design sprint is that opportunity framing, then converting those opportunities into solutions, like concepts that actually gives answers to the four risks that Janki talked about in the research phase. So we try to create hypotheses around those four risks. We frame opportunity by mapping the whole experience, like current way of doing things, and then convert those opportunities into concepts, and then take those concepts, convert them into prototypes which are tested with the users. So that gives you kind of a validation whether to build this or not, whether to move forward with what we have right now, or do we want to iterate on what the feedback is. But it's really important to make sure that you test the whole thing out. So if the unsaturated space, like that's how the research gets plugged into a design sprint during the build phase, and that's how research is given a more tangible form, a visual representation of everything that research was. I hope that answers
Yeah.
everything from a design sprint standpoint. And of course, now Neil, to you, your thoughts on the build phase.
Building phase, basically, if we look at saturated market, the way I look at it is, from the research perspective, there are just couple of things. Most of the things are staying same, like the way, or not exactly staying same, but most of the things will be, can be put aside,
Hmm.
and just few of the bits of research can be taken into a consideration, which is researching of the existing platforms, what they provide, how they provide it, their pricings, their structure, their way of doing things, their existing customers pain points, if there are any. All of that needs to be taken care of, needs to be considered, and then from that you come out with your own gut, and based on that you start building your product. You don't necessarily have to solve for uniqueness in that sense,
Hmm.
but what you may want to solve for is just slight modification in that solution itself. Just like in the previous discussion we talked about this, like you are not always trying to come up with the best or different products. You may just want to come up with a solution which is slightly modified, and that way you can just start off. One of the most important consideration in saturated space, I would say, would be of prioritization and uh, restricting or constraining the timeline, because of course everything is out there already, and you have a validated space, you have users who are using similar products. So it's very easy for you to, I say easy, but it's not technically easy, but it's easier than what's it's meant for uh, saturated unsaturated space. So in that case you just have to make sure that you are time bounding yourself, like I did, and coming up with the best possible solution. Of course, you have to make sure that the table stakes are taken care of. You cannot just have like you cannot have just MVP, like minimum viable product. In that set, you need to have that minimum valuable experience for the users that we talked about in previous episodes as well. And I think, yeah, that's pretty much it for saturated space. Of course, so that's all about build phase. But as we always say, like everything is marketing.
Yeah.
Distribution is the game that all of us want to play. So the huge amount of efforts that should be going into, let's talk about that. And I would like to hear it from you, Harshil. Like, how do you go about distribution? And
Distribution, as we talked about, and I guess of course you both can add to it, but just to give a very high level overview of distribution, it's fundamentally about two most important questions, and it's how do I get myself noticed, and how do I get my stuff out there. That's distribution. And when we talk distribution, the it's with regards to what the scenario is today. Like I'm talking 2024, and we talked about founder led marketing. And if that's the way that we have to go about today, and that is the reality, and we've shared stats about why it is the most important thing and why that makes sense. So yeah, as we talked research, as we talk build, while you are in build phase, you're most aware about what the problem is, who your audience is. You can start communicating the problem, and start having those conversation amongst people who might potentially be your lead users, people who might adapt to your solutions early on. and these people are, of course, conjugating on different places on the internet. So you go there, enter those communities, start finding these people, and start having those conversations about the problem that you're geeking about. Like invite them to watch something together. It is something that we talked about in the Still Like an Artist episode as well. Bring people in, ask them to observe something, just like that. So talk about the problem you have. Once you have given, start adding value. The most important thing is go become part of these communities, keep on adding value, give, and of course parallelly you're still building, so you know what you're solving, or you might pick more signals from your potential lead users about what is it that they would want you to solve. But the idea is to give, and when the time comes, it's you flip the narrative, and now you have something to get it out there. So when that's when you're up nearing launch, you can start having conversation about, hey, you know what, we've been talking about this problem. I am trying to solve this problem in a more different way, and this is one of those way I think that this problem could be tackled. And yeah, that's the distribution game. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think you summarized it really well, the last episode, and I can recall the whole thing again
Yeah.
now. And yeah, I mean, it's all about being noticed,
Mm.
and it's all about getting your stuff out there. That's the two most important questions that people should need or must solve for,
Mm.
or must have an answer for. And when we talk about distributing, it's basically, at least in the context of distribution at the level of, when you are almost about to launch, it's about creating your hype,
Mm.
and creating your hype in a way that people are interested in what you're trying to offer. And before that, what you essentially do is simply go out there in the communities and try to help as much as you can.
Yeah.
And of course, share your learnings while you are learning about the problem more. And as you rightly mentioned, like, you will definitely get those signals from the market, from the users, from the people you are around, to make whatever you are making better.
Yeah.
So it's about iterating your product as well in that particular time too.
Mm.
But again, like, you have to be careful about what to pick, what not to pick. uh, and most of the time, like any other things, I say it again and again, like, your most important thing to do would be saying no to a lot of things.
Mm.
And when you say no to a lot of things, uh, that's when you really move.
Yeah, you
And
focus
that's
on the thing that matters the
exactly,
most. Yeah.
exactly.
And just before we move to the next section of what we're about to talk, I'll just like to talk about why founder-led marketing, because there's this most crucial element of sale, which is trust. And people buy from people, and that's the most important thing. And that's why founder-led marketing is more and more relevant today, because now people want to get more involved into the process. They want to know how Neil or Janki or me, how are we trying to build something, and why are we doing what we are doing. Once they are into the process, they consider themselves as a part of your journey, and that's when the journey is more shared in that sense. So yeah, that's what I wanted to, that's everything that I wanted to say about
One
distribution.
thing, yeah, one thing I recently saw, I was just scrolling LinkedIn, I saw you liking Jason's one of the posts, and
Oh.
that was very sticky. And
Yeah.
what he shared was very interesting in that
Mm.
sense, and
Mm.
that is what you shared as well right now. Like, people want to be involved in the journey of building, together in a way. They want to be at least felt that they are together.
Yeah.
And since we are living in the world where business is very accessible,
Mm.
anyone can actually literally start a business on their own. Everything is very accessible in that sense. Of course, there are risks involved, but it is very accessible in a way. At least it wasn't like that before.
Yeah.
So in that case, there will be a lot of similar products, and he said it correctly, like you don't really have to buy a product, you have to buy that company.
Yeah,
Actually,
exactly.
you don't
Yeah,
buy a product, but you buy a company, and
yeah,
you buy everything that they are doing within that company.
yeah,
So you are making sure that you are not just buying a part of, you are not just spending a portion of your money into someone, but you are just actually making sure that that money, how they are using
yeah,
that money
yeah,
in
yeah,
that
yeah.
business.
They want to know, like,
Exactly.
is how it is actually. It's the life, the money,
Hmm.
the process beyond the product.
Exactly.
That's the whole game. That's
Yeah.
distribution today.
Thank you guys for giving me in isolation. I loved your rambling around build and distribution, but just like I was sitting in isolation, research, build, and distribution does not happen in isolation. It has they are those three phases are really intertwined, and except for the fact that build might have its own phase, but distribution and build also goes in parallel. Research and distribution also goes in parallel. So just an example of how distribution and marketing also plays a role in research. There was this project that I was working on recently, and I was researching, and as a part of de-risking it from on the perspective of value risk, what we really did was we wanted to identify if there was really a demand for that kind of a product, if people resonated with the messaging and the value that we really wanted to communicate. We built a landing page based on the initial hypothesis and communicated a message out there. And I went to an event where my assumed target user were hanging out together, and I positioned myself as a solution provider to that problem and drove that entire traffic to the website to identify and validate that okay, there is a market, there are people who wants to sign up, so the CTA for them was to sign up. And that's how you also validate a unsaturated market. And if the idea is really high risk in terms of are there really people or are there enough people who would want to buy something like that. So in that case, in cases like this, marketing and distribution also fuels into research activities wherein you initially validate whether you really want to invest or move further in this direction or not. So that was that. But Neil, now because research, build, and distribution does not really happen in isolations, they're really intertwined and work together. How did you go about having these three phases in sync signature, and how did it really work out for you?
So if we talk about sync signature or anything, like when you were talking, uh, I could think about how intertwined it is really. Like I can say that if we say that 90% of everything we do is marketing, if we say that 90% of everything we should be doing is marketing, then research is part marketing, building is part marketing, and marketing is part marketing or full marketing. you know so if we talk about sync signature, what I did was, when we were in the research phase, I did a lot of, since we were specifically looking to target bigger market, which is, and if I say it's bigger market, it's probably going to be a saturated one as well. Chances of it is more. So we were looking for something like that in saturated market only. So I was just trying to come up with as many platforms or solutions which are available for a particular domain or the industry, or a segment, we can call it. We tried to look all of that. We were listing it down. We are trying to come up with what kind of product that we can have in that particular industry as well. But meantime, at this uh, at the same time, what I was also doing was me trying to self evaluate myself and trying to come up with what are my core skill sets are, experiences, and what my passion is. I was trying to align all of those together with the solutions that we were exploring. And so Sing Signature was born from the whole research, uh, like that. Like, I was understanding myself, at the same time I was looking at platforms and trying to find that modification required in existing solutions. So I was doing that. and at the same time I was also distributing or giving in the community, where I was very sure since. So I don't know how to put it in steps, but it's all together. It's all happening together. Uh, you are kind of evaluating, like, whatever you want to do is with the founders or the people who are digital savvy and all of that, and then you try to find those people around the communities where they are hanging out, where they are, at what time they are coming in, what kind of discussions they are having, all of that. So I was learning that, going in, watching all of that, taking those data points, again feeding it in my own skill set, experience and all, feeding it in industry that I'm looking at, solutions that I was looking to make changes to. So all of that was happening together. So in that way, Sync Signature's journey was like that. Research in everything, marketing in everything. Like, I cannot really describe it really well, but it's like that. And then we came up with this idea of doing Sync Signature, and once we had that, initial thoughts were me being skillful in coming up with the product scope, restricting timeline. That was the outcome of me evaluating myself, and then so both part become the product scope, and at the same time I was trying to go to the same communities and delivering whatever I was studying from the domains, or whatever space I was interested in this case emails. So I was trying to communicate those topics, communicate in those topics within those communities. So it's all intertwined. I cannot really express it well, but I think you get the point, right? So like that, and then it comes like building phase is almost going to be over. So I was a hype man then, and I was acting like somebody who want to be launching the greatest product ever, and I picked up product hunt for that, and I made myself a name. Somebody, like, not somebody, like, most of the people who were there at that point in time, who were, uh, we can call it active members, they were actually knowing me by my name, probably not, but by that identity that I've created for myself. So that way I was contributing to a level, and then they realized that this guy, again, like, they would probably buy anything that I would come up with. It's not that they are going to buy Sing Signature. They were interested in what I was doing. They were interested in the way I was doing, and that was the results were pretty amazing in that sense. And that's what I realized later on, like, all the efforts that I was putting in all of these pillars, three pillars, that made all the difference. So yeah, I mean, that's the Sing Signature story. And if there is anything specific, I could recall this much, but I'd love to understand a little bit, or if you have questions, we can talk about that as well.
I think that's a very fine example of how these three phases really, really don't work in isolation, and they are
Right.
really intertwined that you cannot distinguish between them, or you cannot just put them down onto steps that I did first this, or this, and this. Because truly, when you're starting to build, your research and marketing activities starts way too early, even building. That brings me to one concept that I read in a book called Running Lean. So initially, when we build products, it was build, demo, and sell. So we build products, we gave demo, and then we sold the products. But right now, the way it works is you demo the product, you sell them, and then you build them. So what you just shared kind of just drew a bit of parallel to me. Although the aspect that you just shared, that providing upfront value to the communities and making those connections and making a position for yourself, an identity that people bought from you, not Sing Signature. So that makes a lot more sense when you talk about founder-led marketing and why it's really important when people buy from people.
Right.
Now we just heard what Neil shared over his launching and building the product and marketing it. Now Harshal, I want to really know of how this three phases, research, build, and distribution, works in form of design sprints, mostly when a client or a project or a product comes to you. Because there's something, I've been part of a lot of design sprints, and there's this process or a journey where we call discover, learn, and use, which just falls into that aspect on how overview, I mean high level user journey of how the user comes into the contact of the product and how they learn more about it and how they use it. So do you want to put some light on that aspect, or do you have any concrete examples of that you can share with the listeners who can definitely benefit of how these three things come together as a
Yeah.
process?
What you rightly said is that, and we had something similar during one of the recent sprints. We discovered is that what is this thing you said is that you demo the product first, then you sell the product, and then you actually build the product. And that's what we did. We flipped the narrative of design sprints for the first time, where we were sprinting for a particular product in the creative space. I won't say what exactly the space or what the product is. I am not allowed to say that. But so we are doing that, and what we realize is that forget building. We don't do the whole design sprint. We just map out the journey. And if we map out the journey of discover, learn, use, can we communicate that via landing page? So we haven't designed anything as such. There is no prototype. The concept is only about the landing page that you were talking about. And we did something similar, that okay, can we get this landing page out there, run ad campaigns like paid advertisements to be able to drive people to that particular page, and can we get an early validation that either we are communicating the space in the right way, like the problem in the right way, or should we even go and build this thing? So there were two things that we had to test. Are we communicating it well? Do people understand what is it that we are communicating? Like just communicating the problem. And if we are communicating it, would people be interested in looking for a solution to this problem? And what happened is that, like, I won't say the exact outcome, but I guess that we were not there in regards to be able to communicate the problem really well. So the communication base, as you said, that you're communicating it, you're going to the communities and you're sharing the problem or talking the problem enough and taking data points from those conversations, is actually then plugging into the research phase, that okay, this is not what sticks. People are not looking at it as a problem, and there needs to be something more that we have to look for. So I guess that's when you plug it back into the research. You then remodify what is it that you want to communicate, and you kind of keep on revolving in this space, and then you eventually go and build the whole bloody thing. So I guess, I don't know if that answers what you were asking, but yeah, that is my understanding of how the whole thing is intertwined. And in a design sprint, actually all of this that we're talking about comes together. But even if it does come together, we were not thinking it like that up until this point. We are thinking of all of this in isolation. Like day one is only the research and opportunity. Day two is only the mapping of the experience. Day three is only the solutions. But we are not looking at everything and trying to go back and forth across all of these things. So yeah, it's in short what we talked about in the research episode. Nothing is linear. It's not sequential.
I think also one aspect of it, when you run design sprints and run this entire journey of discover, learn, use, and when you start identifying problems, you actually discover whether the problem is really in the marketing, like where the people are discovering you. You identify, are people able to understand and resonate with the problem that you're communicating? That's what you just shared. And if there are a lot of problems in the use phase, if people are, you have churn off rates and people are not retained in your product, so you understand that there's a product problem. So having that holistic picture of the entire journey, which also rightly just covers all the three aspects or processes of a product life cycle, you are better able to take a step back and see your product as a product overview of where your problem actually lies in general. And there's this one quote, I don't remember about who quoted it, but if you are able to define a problem really well, you have half the problem solved already. So when you're, I think when you're going, having the outside in approach, when you're starting out really new, unlike you who already understand the space, but really understanding if you're solving the right problem, if you're going able to communicate that problem, then the product
Yeah.
is only going to make sense. Otherwise, your entire build phase, it's going to be not really helpful to the people, because you don't understand the problem that you're solving, you don't understand your target audience, and how are you going to reach them.
Yeah. I mean, you end up in that bubble of building, because I guess now that is more and more easier, as you keep on saying, that it's so accessible that everyone can go and build a product, but no one or very few people can actually go and sell a product. So yeah, I mean, discover and learn bit are one of the most, like, these two are the most crucial things. So yeah, I mean, that summarizes the research, build, and on distribution journey. And so yeah, that's how you go from an idea to a product that is hopefully well distributed. Where can people find you online, Neil?
Mainly LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Product hunt is where I'm active now again. Not because my launch is coming, but yeah, I'm feeling like there's a lot of good people. Of course, there will be bots, but there are a lot of good people found in the community. And yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to find, not exactly find, but prioritize a couple of more communities where I can be more active, so that uh, give part becomes very natural and very frequent, so that when it's time for me to distribute something, they would consider me as somebody who has given enough
Yeah.
for to take just little bit of that. So yeah, I mean, uh, primarily LinkedIn and product hunt.
Okay.
How about you?
uh, People can find me on LinkedIn. Yes, and I would want to go to a point where I am active on product hunt as well. But yeah, as of right now, I can be found on LinkedIn.
Makes sense. What about you, Janki?
So I can easily be found these days on LinkedIn. I'm really active, and plus, thanks to you and your influence, I've been active on Product Hunt, testing different products and reviewing those products and providing feedback. So these are the two platforms that I'm really active. I tried X, but I'm not really active right now. But yeah, on and off. But really active on Product Hunt and LinkedIn.
Great, amazing.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
All right, folks. Yeah.
Yes. See you next time.